SciByte is produced by JupiterBroadcasting.com, independent entertainment that's on demand. Check us out. Hi, everyone, and welcome to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast. We recorded this one live on April 3rd, 2012, for release on April 4th, 2012. My name is Chris, and joining us like every single week is Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hello there, Chris.
Hey there, Heather. Happy science to you.
Happy science.
What do we have coming up on today's show?
Today, we're going to take a look at recovering Apollo 11 hardware, James Cameron's ocean dive, sprinting planets, Lego science, coffee, Einstein's writing, Hubble image competition, viewer feedback, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
Holy smokes, what a heck of a show. I'm not sure you can put all that in one podcast, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
We'll see.
You know what it is, Heather? It's just too much out there is plain old distraction. And here at SciByte, we like to have our cake and eat it too. So we'll cover the interesting things that are going out in science out there and bring you that every single week. So all right, Heather.
Okay.
I know we've got a lot to get to, so without further ado, let's do the news. What is our first story today?
Apollo 11 engines found at the bottom of the ocean.
Ooh, that sounds fancy.
So on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to step foot on the moon. A few days earlier, they were launched off with 5 F-1 engines, burned for just a few minutes, shot them from the Earth, the Atlantic, and to the moon, and fell back into the Atlantic Ocean. Those were still the single most powerful single-chamber liquid rocket engines ever developed. They produced like 1.5 million pounds of thrust, burned 6,000 pounds of rocket-grade kerosene, liquid oxygen every second. And now, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has located them using long-range sonar. They've kind of located them at the bottom of the ocean at about 14,000 feet below the surface. Is
Bezos like some sort of sea explorer nut?
You know, I'm not sure. I think he was just, he's got a lot of ideas. I think he just wanted to go and look for this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of attention given to Apollo 11.
True. And for those who don't know, Jeff Bezos is the founder and CEO of Amazon.com.
That is right. And so, I mean, there were these, no one knew what were these going to happen. I mean, even now, they don't have eye visuals on the engines. They only have deep sea sonar that kind of pointed them out. And they could kind of backtrack where they were landed based on going backwards and seeing, where things were launched and the timing of various things. So they have this long-range sonar, and they have plans to go down, kind of get an eyes-on visual. Not quite sure what condition they're going to be on. I mean, they've sat at the bottom of the ocean for 40 years. Yeah. They hit the surface of the ocean at very high velocity. But he does have plans to go down there, get visuals on them, and then try to recover them even. So there were 5 different engines, and they're going to try to see if they can recover at least one, maybe more than that.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. And NASA's made a statement that, they do retain ownership of any artifacts from any sort of space launch. But, I mean, they have longstanding agreements with the Smithsonian. Yes. Space Museum in Washington. And they'll probably give one to them to put on display. If they said there is more than one, he did make a request that another one would be at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington.
Oh, that'd be
great. Yeah. So
in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So he kind of requested, he's like, hey, NASA, if you can we have one over here maybe?
Yeah.
Because I like this museum. And so they've
Gosh,
said,
how cool would that be for me? That'd be great.
oh, yeah. Then you'll have to go and take pictures, and it'll be like you'll be our on-the-road news reporter for SciByte.
SciByte on location. I'm here in front of the engine. It looks like an engine.
Yeah, it's a giant engine.
Yeah.
It threw 2 guys, well, 3 if you include the poor guy who sat in orbit. It threw a couple guys to the moon.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's the most powerful single-chamber liquid-fueled rocket ever developed still. So
Yes.
that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, of course, there's various types of rockets, various chambers and dual fueled, so you have solid and liquid. But for this specific type of engine, nothing else has been developed that is stronger.
Huh. I'm honestly kind of curious too, a little bit about Bezos' background in this kind of stuff, because I know some of these rich, .com founder guys go off and they have some pretty big hobbies that take them to crazy spots in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe this is his thing.
Yep.
And if NASA can't afford to do it, why not have the rich private industry guy do it?
Yeah, I mean they've essentially said, hey, good job for you if you can recover them, and if they're, we'll just realize that one goes in the Smithsonian. They do kind of belong to us still. If they get another one, it'll be at the Museum of Flight in Seattle.
That's really cool. And so they would still, though, technically own that. So Bezos doesn't own either of them if they were able to recover, or even if they were able to recover all of them, he would get no ownership rights, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's any of the modules, the Liberty 7 that was recovered, any of those modules or launched things in the Smithsonian or in various locations they still belong to NASA. Any gloves or anything that was from them still belong to them, but they can be on some sort of permanent loan agreement.
Loan. Okay. Loan. That makes sense. Well, then that encourages, I hope they go through with it. I'll be curious to know. Let us know. Keep us up to date.
I'll be very excited to know if I'm nervous that they won't be in any sort of condition to raise to the surface. But hopefully they'll be in great enough condition to pull up to the surface and then be on display in some, decent fashion, so they can actually be viewed by. And
did you say how they know it's Apollo 11? Is it just based on location?
Yeah, based on location. They won't know for sure until they get eyes on it. Then they'll be able to read some of the numbers off of these, or when they pull it up to the surface, then they will know for certain. But by location, you can kind of narrow it down, and they're fairly sure that it is Apollo 11.
Because it does get a lot more attention when it's Apollo 11 too, right?
Oh,
That's the only thing I'm thinking is maybe because but I mean, still, it doesn't really matter which Apollo mission is. It'd still be very cool.
Yeah, out of all the Apollo missions to the moon, it's pretty much Apollo 11, Apollo 13, and then the last one to the moon, 17, I think.
Yeah.
Or 17. Yeah.
I think so. Well, very interesting. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, like I said, we'll just kind of keep an eye on this, and I can't wait till they actually pull them up so we can see what they look like. Yeah,
I mean, and of course, regardless of what happens, it'll be kind of fascinating just to find out how they hold up and things like that. So I'm sure we'll talk about it then. Oh, that little tone reminds us that this episode is sponsored by you guys. You guys fund every episode of SciByte, so thank you for doing that. And how can you do that? Well, we've got a couple of different ways, but one of the best ways, I think, is if you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the site. We have links down there for a couple of affiliate sites: Amazon US, UK, Newegg, ThinkGeek. We got Best Buy, Mint.com, all of those. Audible, which is awesome. All of those, if you click them before you shop, then your shopping session will be tagged for Jupiter Broadcasting, and a little portion of what you spend actually goes to us. It doesn't cost you anything more, and that's a great way, especially for people who buy like a lot of things from Amazon. And this is super handy because it's just a small little steady income that really helps us out, and it helps fund the shows like SciByte. We've also got a Chrome extension there, so if you use the Chrome browser, you install that sucker, and then you don't even have to click those links. It'll automatically tag your shopping sessions at those sites. And I believe a Firefox extension is in the works.
Nice.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody who does that. There's other methods, of course. You can donate directly over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate. But I personally like the affiliate deal because I really like the idea of, everybody gets a little something in that setup.
Yep.
So that's kind of nice.
Makes you feel a little bit better every time you buy something for yourself or you buy a gift to somebody else. It's like a dual gift.
Yeah, it's great. See, now, you can't buy from yourself, right?
You can buy for yourself.
Well, no, I mean using the affiliate system. Like I can't buy something for the house and use the Jupiter Broadcasting affiliate. It's the Amazon rules. They don't let you do it. So what I do is I affiliate everything I buy for Alan, for Scale Engine.
Ah.
Yeah, so since Ange and I are huge Amazon shoppers and with Prime, and there's just not a lot of stuff in the area that we live, so Amazon's a great resource for us.
Uh-huh.
And since we can't get the affiliate, we donate it all to Scale Engine. So
nice.
Yeah, and since he gives all kinds of little goodies away to Jupiter Broadcasting, I thought that'd be kind of a nice way to help him out. Now, Heather, I do believe with that out of the way, it is time to continue our quest into the sea with the SciByte.
That is correct. Last week we teased it, but James Cameron dove down to the Mariana Trench.
Yeah, this is serious. This is way down there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Specially designed submarine, deep sea Challenger, dove into the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the Earth oceans, nearly 7 miles beneath the surface of the ocean.
That's incredible.
He reached, it was the deepest point on the Earth that man can go. Only 2 other men have ever gone that deep. So there's all sorts of complications and very serious things that you have to do to make sure you're safe all the way down and then all the way back up. The pressures, the deeper you go down, the pressure per square inch goes up so much. So you have to make sure that everything is tight. You have the right kind of oxygen supply. So they went down. Some technical troubles made it so they weren't able to do sample collection. They were going to try to collect a few creatures or soil or water from the deep sea dive. They weren't able to do that, but they were able to take video. And so they did that and they came back up. And so it's really cool. I mean, you go down that deep. I mean, not many people have gone, like I said, this makes the 3rd person who's gone that deep.
Oh, I thought he was the first.
No, 2 other men have gone down into the Mariana Trench.
Oh, okay. So was the system he was using to do it, was that new?
He may have gone deeper than the other 2. I know that
it's been more than 50 years, they say here in their video. So I guess, I guess he's not the first. I guess there was somebody else. But this, so if it was that long ago, this sub I think is actually part of the real story here, isn't it? Because I mean, this thing is really high tech. Yeah. And he's got like big cameras attached to this thing. Like he's obviously planning to do something that's going to be projected on the big screen. Yeah,
I believe they're going to have a movie or something. So there's only so many visuals out now. But they have, some of the first footage has been released.
Would you do something like this?
Possibly. I don't know.
So he's gone deeper than the nuclear submarine. He's gone deeper than the deepest recorded submarine dive.
Yep. Now I think he does have a 3D movie coming out about this. I know they're going to do possibly one about the Titanic. So, well, he did the Titanic, so they're going to have a 3D movie about this.
Now, maybe Dirty Boxers is being a cynic, but I kind of agree with him too. The timing of this does fit up really great with James Cameron's Titanic going back into the theater for 3D release.
Yeah, I believe he's actually said, I think he's admitted the fact that these are closely related. I mean, if we're going to get a 3D movie out of the deep sea promote
the heck out of that. Promote the heck out of that. That does sound really cool.
If he is interested in doing that, if he wants to release it as he releases Titanic 3D, whatever. We get to have cool video of stuff from the Mariana Trench.
Now, when I see stuff like this, so James Cameron obviously is not your average everyday man. He has access to stuff that Joe Average like me doesn't have access to.
Yeah.
But it seems like perhaps we're seeing a precedence being set here.
Uh-huh.
that average Joes could get themselves one of these for the afternoon and go down and explore or something like that. Maybe you'd be tethered or whatever the heck, but I mean, if he now has access to this, how long could it be before consumers have access to this? What do you think? You think forever? You think maybe?
I mean, it's not going to be forever, but this is one man, fairly rich man, who spent this money to get it going.
Sure, but all you need is another rich man to spend the money to do like one that supports 3 people. You build it once, and then you send people down for $500 a trip for the next 20 years. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but
it's one of those situations, much like the Spaceship One. Go up and feel weightlessness, or possibly orbit the Earth, or something like that. It takes a while to get the capital going, to have the safety and have, how many seats per vehicle. Does it make it worth to have 3? Does it make it worth to have more? Building something that is complies to safety regulations. For some of the Spaceship One, it's launching in the U.S. There's certain regulations you have to follow there. For the Mariana Trench, I'm not sure what kind of regulations you'd have to deal with.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. It does seem maybe more achievable than space, privatized space tourism.
At that depth, it's
maybe not that depth.
There's a certain point in the ocean at the depth that it is just as dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, in space, there's lack of atmosphere, but once you dive to a certain degree in the ocean, you're going to get squashed. I mean, there's a great deal of pressure.
So I guess
just from above you. Can
I change mental gears on you for a second?
Sure.
Because I think people who've listened to the show for a while know that you are, you've thought a lot about colonization of Mars and reaching out and things like that. Yes. And could you not possibly see the argument that really spending our efforts focusing on exploring and maybe even somehow making underwater sea habitable, isn't that maybe more useful than spending our time on space travel and trying to reach out to Mars? Because there's so much of our planet that's covered in water that if we could get down there, maybe build facilities, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting point. There are definitely certain aspects that make sense to go into the ocean. One of the larger arguments for going to Mars or something like that is that should a catastrophic event happen, mankind would be on another planet.
Right.
That would take a little while for
offsite backup.
Enough of a large enough colony that it would make a difference.
I mean, Ocean Edge is following me in the chat room. What I was essentially alluding at is like Sequest, but I didn't want to come out and say it because I didn't want to ruin my argument here. But
okay.
I mean, I really think that, I totally grok that argument. Yes, the thing about going to Mars is that's offsite backup, and you don't have backup until you have offsite backup. But it does seem to me that we could do farming, maybe some type of farming under there of sea. I don't know, seaweed. I don't know, but it just seems to me like there's a lot of unused territory and potential there that if we could find the balance between environmental responsibility and going down there, that maybe that would be the better use of our immediate time, because maybe we're just not ready to go out into space because that just doesn't seem to be happening.
So much of this kind of stuff is based upon what your goal is. What's your plan of attack? How quickly do you want to get somewhere? I mean, should you be in my corner and you believe we actually landed on the moon, then in a decade, we went from nothing to landed on the moon. With computers that are, can fit in the top, something that fits in your palm of the hand now is far more powerful than we had then.
Right.
I mean, these are guys who use slide rule and pencils to get so much of this calculated. So a lot of it is based on what's your priority? How quickly do you need to get somewhere? Are you just looking at technology building? And some of it is based on, these private industry people.
I guess what I'm worried about.
We have Spaceship One. We have these, can you get it to be a private industry and then get them to actually get it going fast enough that, so the first couple of trips are, even $100,000 and you get, all the people who really can afford it get to go on it.
Yeah.
And then the price starts coming down and they're able to use that capital to build other
Right.
ships or anything. And the price keeps coming down until people like you and me can save up.
That's a much more incremental approach, right?
Yes.
It's something that's going to take a lot longer. Like, because see, I think the fundamental problem we have now is I think the Apollo program and going to the moon was sort of the result of something that I don't think America is going to see for a very long time again. It was sort of the rewards and riches that we are now receiving after the World War II and sort of rebuilding in Europe and rebuilding here at home and getting out of the Great Depression and becoming a successful economy again. We sort of built back up and we had money to spend and we had political capital and we had will and we also had
space race and
we had a competitor that was extremely neck and neck, and it was there was a lot of life and death subtext to it. And then on top of all of that, there was sort of this more open-minded public about these kinds of things. Science was very cool.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we're going to that direction again for a very long time. And so maybe either A, we should be focusing on the oceans, or B, we have to rely on private industry for space travel.
Well, there'll be a lot of private industry for any of this exploration. I mean, typically, I would say the government is more like, a foothold. Can they do pure research? Can they give certain small businesses a leg up to get started? But any of this is going to move forward quickly. It's going to be private business. They are the most interested in getting the most bang for your buck. They're going to follow a certain set of rules, and they're going to do it. They don't have to follow a set of governmental, filings. They don't have to fill out this form or that form and be so worried about specific government rules and regulations.
Is that really true? Aren't pretty much all things like this heavily regulated now that they do have a bunch of loopholes? And would you agree that we wouldn't have landed on the moon in the 60s if we were dependent on private industry to get us there? I mean, you needed just the unlimited. I mean, when you look at the scale of equipment they used just to move equipment around and to build things, I think people have no idea the scope of work that was involved in the Apollo program, and it is mind-boggling to me.
Oh, it was incredibly mind-boggling.
And without the government doing that, and don't you almost need something like that again to get us to Mars?
I'm not sure. I think that it'll definitely give us a hand, and they might be able to do it at a decent rate. But with technology the way it is now, and we have the capital flying around in the private industry, that should they see a reason that it would make money, then, beyond publicizing your 3D movie, these people are doing this kind of thing. They're going down and they're like, they're diving down to the Mariana Trench.
Right.
They're recovering Apollo 11 rockets.
I guess what you're saying is it's so bad if there is a little commercial side to it, as long as it's still, the science deed is still happening.
Yeah. There's some combination. Some of it's going to go hand in hand.
I can see that. And I guess, too, it's not as, the technology is more evolved and available now, so the task of getting to the moon back then, everything had to be invented to do it.
Yes,
everything.
And there's a lot of technological layouts. There's so many things that are there. There are, there's a lot there and a lot of historical data. And things are so available now that a lot of people have more opportunity to do these type of things, have an opportunity to take it off. Spaceship One. These are people who are offering in the sort of near-term future to be able to throw you up to weightlessness. You have officially gone to space. Eventually you have orbited the Earth. So there are these kind of things that are more available now. I
guess I just don't like the idea of the rich getting richer and the more powerful getting more famous for not just their movies now, but also scientific discoveries. But at the same time, that's kind of an irrational sort of maybe jealousy. I don't really think it's justified.
In any of these kind of things, people are like, well, why waste that money on that kind of thing? Well, all the money is being spent here on Earth. Anything built to go to space is built here on Earth. Somebody's being paid to do it. If you believe in commercialism, then why wouldn't this guy get a chance to?
You see that too, because there's a whole industry built around the shuttles, and the whole, I mean, there really is like it's like car manufacturing. If the car manufacturer goes out of business, there's a whole third party that goes out of business too.
Yeah, if these people, if Spaceship One becomes an enterprising commercial entity, and you can buy all these tickets. Well, guess what? They're going to want to build another one. They're going to want to hire people to build other ships, to train, to be the control systems on the ground, to be the safety officers, to be the person selling the tickets for media. There are a lot of jobs that go along with these kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's, the money is being made, and then it's off. They're going to want to pour it back out.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, the chat room's starting to go to the direction of NASA budgeting. We've talked about that before on the show.
Yes.
And that's just a constant point of frustration.
Well, yeah, anything's going to be that way. You have a budget, and budgets are going to go up. They're going to go down. Political influence is going to go this way or that way.
Sometimes they go down more often than they go up.
Yeah. And I won't get sidetracked into my constant brain loop on that, but... That's also the reason why I'm interested in some private industry going on. I mean, when the budget is low, private industry can take that information and keep building on it.
Right.
And then when the governmental budget comes back, they can kind of look at what technology is out there and build on that.
Seems like an interesting leap you've made, though, because, you followed NASA your entire life. You work very closely with NASA, et cetera, and yet here you are saying, I think private industry is good. Even though if private industry was completely successful, I could even see them really gutting NASA.
Sure. For me, everything in that direction is good. Up until recently, NASA was the big kid on the block. There weren't a lot of other options. Nobody else was really going up and talking about this kind of thing. Now private industry is popping up. And I see that as a more consistent idea. Sure, the companies will go up, they'll go down, but I see nothing wrong with there being, and actually I think is really good there for there to be competition, even should it be government and private industry. Well, there's more than one avenue going on.
It's repayment, isn't it? It's repayment in the investment that we made early on in the space program. And developing those technologies out, creating contracts and partner companies that then have spun off and made, have gone from there. And all of it's one of these things where it's really hard to quantify the long-term return that NASA and those types of programs provide. But then if you look at it from a real, high 50,000 foot point of view, you can say, well, look at Virgin America, look at the space, Spaceship X, look at all these people that are coming up with these privatized solutions to space travel that probably wouldn't even be at this point if we hadn't made all those investments, and those could then go on to be a future contributor to our economy, much like the airline industry occasionally is, and other big forms of transportation, all because we spent a ton of money 20-30 years ago.
It all comes down to any of these, deep sea space, any of these explorations are very interesting, and they have a whole bunch of potential. They have unlimited potential. Do we know what now? Do we know what later? I don't know. There's a lot of government institutions doing this kind of thing, and now there are private institutions, forwarding this data. Any avenue is good, and I'm looking forward to seeing where these kind of things go.
Yeah. Well put, Heather. Well, you know what that makes me think of? You know what it makes me think of?
What is it?
You don't have a guess?
Another news bite?
Close. Before we go to that, I want to tell people about a Star Wars book that I've been listening to. Heather actually recommended it to me, so full credit goes to Heather. And
only partial.
Why?
I think a number of people recommended this specific book to you.
But I think you were the first.
Okay.
So, they'll get credit for book 2 and 3. This is a multi-part Star Wars. It's actually a trilogy. It's Star Wars. I almost said it the way I've been joking all night. Heir to the Empire, the 20th anniversary edition, the Thrawn trilogy, book 1. This here book is 1 credit if you get it from Audible, and it's 13 hours long. That 1 credit means you can get it for free, and if you even cancel your Audible subscription, you still get to keep the book. You just have to use the link in the show notes. I cannot tell you how much I've been enjoying this book. And
Yes.
Heather, do you think I would spoiler if I say when it takes place? Do you think, is that a spoiler?
I'd say anything that would be on the back of the book would be okay.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so that it takes place after the original Star Wars movies, and it's sort of a continuation of that. In fact, I think you've told me, Heather, a lot of people think it should have been the new movies instead of what we did get. And what I love about it is the production quality of this book. It is really a Star Wars experience. I'll play a sample for you because it's really fantastic.
It would have been inconceivable for a man as young as Tichel to serve as a bridge officer aboard a ship like the Chimera.
And you hear the ship sounds in the background?
He looked down at the equally young man at the engineering monitor. Now, in contrast, the Chimera had virtually no one aboard except young men and women. Slowly, Pelion let his eyes sweep across the bridge, feeling the echoes of old anger and hatred twist through his stomach. There had been many commanders in the fleet, he knew, who had seen the Emperor's original Death Star as a blatant attempt to bring the Empire's vast military power more tightly under his direct control.
I'll leave it right there, but it is so great. So many fantastic voices. They have things in there like if he reads and someone snuck up behind him and all he heard was the sound of a lightsaber. Like you hear a great sounding lightsaber go off in the background.
Yeah.
And as
so many of those books are excellent in that way. There's
textured,
drama type where it's
detailed.
There's sounds and there's they make all these great voices.
You got it right, Heather. So I highly recommend this book. Again, that is Star Wars: Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn Trilogy, Book 1. And I'm going to be listening to Book 2 and 3 later on, so if you want to listen along with me, I'm about halfway through the book right now. I go kind of slow, though, because I do a lot of podcasts, so you have time to catch up. It's 13 hours, I believe, of listening. Yeah, so I'm about halfway through that now if you want to join me. I'm absolutely loving it, and I'll be on to the next books. The reason I picked it up is because we're both, Heather and I, are doing a new show called Torqued over at Jupiter Broadcasting, and it's all about Star Wars: The Old Republic. And we're pretty excited, right?
Yes.
We're both big Tor players, Star Wars: The Old Republic, and the folks in our production crew told me that if I started with these books, it'd be a good referencing point for the game. Now, I don't know how that links up yet because the timelines are quite different, but that's what I've been told.
Getting more in touch with the universe is always a good background.
Ah, I see. And you know what? It is doing that. Actually, it's funny because they refer to things as the New Republic, and there are actually connections between the game and the books already. So it's actually already been kind of enjoyable that way. So, if you haven't checked out Torqued and you are a Star Wars: The Old Republic player, go do it. You can find it over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. And then you can really be geeky like I am. While I listen to my audiobook while I play the game until I get to dialogue, and then I have to pause the book.
Nice.
So, all right. So, like I said, you have to get the link in the show notes in order for us to get credit. And thank you to everybody who does that. Now it is time for the News Bite. 2-Byte News?
For the 2-Byte News.
I never get it right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. So what do we got?
Runaway planets. Back in 2005, there was evidence of runaway stars flying out of the Milky Way at 1.5 million miles an hour. And since then, 16 of these hypervelocity stars have been found. So it's, for some reason or another, gravity has kicked these stars just flying out of the Milky Way, going incredibly fast. And a new study has actually found that planets could be ejected from their star and escape the Milky Way at about 30 million miles an hour.
Now I got one more thing to worry about.
Yeah, a fraction of the speed of light. There's planets that could be shooting away. A typical one would probably dash out, 7 to 10 million miles an hour. I mean, at the right conditions, they could boost to like 30 million. Now, at that speed, they'd be the fastest large solid objects, flying in the universe that we know of, across the diameter of the Earth in 10 seconds.
I want to hitch a ride with that thing.
Yeah. Hitch a ride to cross the vast oceans, only hop on for a second, don't miss time.
Wow.
Really, you don't want to miss time your step.
Right. Yeah, that's a bus that's hard to catch.
Yeah. These are the type of things that should you lose your bus stop, you could travel through escape the Milky Way, go through interstellar space, intergalactic space. And they were looking at even these hypervelocity stars that they've seen. Planets that are in tight enough orbit around those stars could actually travel with them. And they're actually looking at these hypervelocity stars because just like we've seen with the ways they find planets around other stars with the Kepler Space Telescope and such, you can look at the dimming as the planet passes in front of the star, you can see the dimming.
Right.
So they're looking at these hypervelocity stars to see if they can see that dimming, because they can see a transit of the planet.
Uh-huh.
So they're actually thinking, well, because of these studies show that they could possibly survive that and travel with the star, and their planets themselves could travel. So they're actually starting to look at these hypervelocity stars, searching for that data, the dip in the light.
Yeah. Nothing yet. They haven't seen it yet?
Not quite yet. There's only 16 or so of these hypervelocity stars. So you kind of have to locate them and view them. Any of the planets around other stars, any of the exoplanets we've seen, before they say it's a planet, they have to have 3 orbits. They have to see it 3 times. So you have to follow these stars. They have to look for the dim in the light. They have to make sure that it's not something else in between us and them. Other stars are fairly fixed in space. They're kind of moving along with us. Any great movement is going to take thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of years. But these hypervelocity stars are moving. So they could actually be in different parts of the sky.
Wow.
So you have to, not vastly, but they're actually moving so much faster than anything else that you'd want to locate them and observe them over and over, make sure that there is a frequency to it. It's every 6 months, every 2 months, every year that you see it consistently.
Did you say, and I just missed it, but how does a planet get ejected from its star in the first place?
What might happen is if 2 stars get too close together, they can,
okay.
The gravity is such that it could eject a star. Should a star with a planet in it get close enough to a black hole, not everything gets pulled into a black hole. If there was a black hole with the mass of the sun right where it is, the Earth would keep orbiting. It would be mighty cold, but it would just keep orbiting in its current orbit. So if a star got pulled towards a black hole for some reason, or another star, you could have this gravity and it would just be a whip, crack the whip out.
I see.
Or even two galaxies, when they collide, there's a lot of distance in between stars. You see there are a couple of galaxy collisions that you can see, and they're being torn and stretched this way and that way. Now, you're not really going to get stars hitting each other, but occasionally you might get 2 that come close enough to each other that it could shoot a star off, or maybe it just catches an outside planet and shoots it off into the wild blue yonder.
Huh.
So it's all about essentially gravitational slingshots. We've talked about these kind of things used to move probes in between the planets. Theoretically, in Star Trek, you travel in time in Chris's brain.
I wasn't going to say it. I don't know if you noticed, but I wasn't saying it.
I was very proud.
You brought it up. I didn't say it.
I was going to release that part of your brain cell and then move on.
Thank you.
But, any of these type of things, it's just on a grander scale, on a galactic scale, then you can shoot these stars off or these planets off with this essentially mega Supermaned up.
You're just
full of spinach.
Here I am. I'm space explorer, and I'm just flying out in my new awesome spaceship that goes super fast, and I'm traveling to Alpha Centauri, and all of a sudden I get hit by a rogue planet. Just out of nowhere. It's like here back on Earth, I have to worry about deer jumping out in front of my car, and now it's
now you're gonna have to worry about planets jumping out.
Yeah.
You'll have to have little signs, planet crossing.
I just never get a break.
No.
So, well, all right. Any thoughts on that one?
No, there's not going to be many of these of these planets smooshing into your theoretical spaceship going theoretically to Alpha Centauri
Right.
in some X amount of future years.
Right.
But
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2 years.
Oh, okay. In 2 years.
Now, it just wouldn't be a SciByte if we didn't talk about Legos at least once every other episode. So
Yes.
we do have a Lego story in here, right?
Yes, and this time they're not going to space.
No.
I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, we've talked about Legos like 16 times this year. This time they're not going to space?
Well,
Excellent.
All right. We got a new take on the Legos. What are they up to?
Yes. Take a couple steps back and you talk about bones. These Legos are helping build bones, synthetic bone structures.
Bones?
Yes, bones. Not like the person on Star Trek, but like the things that like
Right.
hold you upright. So bones are an excellent, mechanical properties for weight bearing and things like that. Synthetic bones can be used from anything from obvious medical implants to materials in building construction. And now, researchers at Cambridge University have actually used Legos to help them build up synthetic bones. Now, in order to grow them, you have to dip a sample into a beaker of calcium and protein, then rinse it off, dip it into another beaker of phosphates and protein. This just has to be repeated over and over and over again to build up the structure. Very slow, very time-consuming, very tedious.
Very robotic, over and over type action.
Yes. Now, anything like this, you can always go and get some very expensive piece of equipment off the shelf, or you could try to find some other inventive way to... Sure, intern. Or a very inventive way to automate it on the cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, intern would have to do it over and over again overnight. Yeah. You have to pay them. You'd have to hope that they didn't fall asleep and knock over the beaker.
Didn't introduce some kind of error.
Yeah, introduce some sort of error. Yeah. So somebody thought of going out and getting the Lego Mindstorms robotic kit. So they programmed it in, and they had like a little crane. They programmed it in so it would go, drop it down in one beaker, drop down in the various beakers, and it could just repeat it ad infinitum.
Wow.
Over and over. So they could let it go overnight. They could let it go over the weekend.
Did they say what they controlled the Lego robots with? Like what kind of software or like hardware?
Lego Mindstorm, it comes with a little microprocessor.
So maybe they could, you could hook up to and just give it some commands, I see.
Yeah, you could hook it up to a microprocessor. There's a couple of motors, some sensors. Just hook all this together. I mean, even if you had, a slightly souped up microprocessor, that wasn't from the Lego Mindstorms, then that's okay.
Yeah, you combine this with the Raspberry Pi, which is a little $35 Linux computer all on a board.
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Well, that makes sense. We have a visual of it with a link in the show notes, and it looks, exactly like the right tool for the job, surprisingly. Yeah. Freaking Legos, huh?
Oh, yeah. And everyone thinks that, everything in science has to be, all these labs and things have to use the most expensive equipment and the shiniest things. But sometimes you do. There's a way to think about it. You're like, this would actually work.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything from going down to the local hardware store to kind of cobble something together that will work. There are definitely occasions where you have to have high quality equipment and very specific conditions. But sometimes going down to the Lego store will do it.
Just don't bring your kids to work because they'll ruin the equipment.
Yeah, they might go after your Legos.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, Legos!
Yeah.
I want to touch. Like, no, synthetic bones.
I'm getting a little sleepy in here. Maybe I should pour myself a cup of coffee. You don't have any coffee-related story, do you, Heather?
I might.
What? Well, share it with me. What are the chances?
So coffee. Everyone loves them as stimulants.
You don't drink coffee, do you?
No, caffeine does not agree with me.
Yeah. You seem like you probably don't really need caffeine.
I'm a fairly hyper person.
Yeah.
But now there are studies, sorry caffeine lovers, that show caffeine and amphetamines actually have the opposite effect of they actually decrease in performance for workers with a high motivation.
They decrease performance of workers with high motivation?
Yeah. They've studied...
That sounds a little hard to understand.
So they've have a study. There were slacker rats and worker rats. Yeah. Seriously. And so what they had is, they had a little test, and you could push this little button and, really quickly, and it would give them a small treat. And they could just push this other button and hold it for like 5 seconds, and they'll give them a bigger treat. So they quickly saw that there was a set of rats that repeatedly would just go for the, quick push, and there we go, I'm done. And then there were a group of rats who were very consistent, and they were highly motivated. They'd sit there on their little button and get the higher payoff. So, they were much more highly motivated. Now, for the slacker rats, the amphetamine, it actually sharpened their mental worth ethic. It made them much more likely to choose the harder task, and, they did that. But for the workers, it actually caused them to choose the easier option more often. So they're not quite sure why stimulants would cause the highly motivated rats to choose the easier task. One possibility that they're thinking of is that since the hard workers are already performing at optimal capacity, there's not really going to be any increase. And so, the slacker rats are suddenly have this caffeine and amphetamines that kind of
gives them a
increase their
boost they're not
motivation.
used to having.
Yeah, it gives them a little booster, and the workers don't really need that booster. They already have it built in. But
I'm not sure how this registers with my personal experience. I've always utilized caffeine as a tool to recover from the side effects of sleep apnea, so I don't really...
Yeah. Well, I kind of thought about this too. There are various things. There are just simply staying awake. You're using it to simply stay awake. Now, what they're saying is that it might tweak with your motivation.
So it sounds like it's better to be a slacker rat, because you can be a slacker and totally kick back most of the time.
And you'll get the most bang for your buck with caffeine.
Yeah, you need a little caffeine.
You should just suddenly start slacking. It's
oh
just,
my gosh, I've been doing this wrong all this time. I should be doing one podcast and then...
No, your brain is already highly motivated. That's how your brain works. That's how you are.
Oh, okay. All right.
And if you're sleepy and caffeine works for you, then that has nothing to do with it.
Oh, I thought maybe I should be a slacker rat, because that does seem like a good idea, but I'll go with...
It does indicate that stimulants affect people highly differently. If you're highly motivated, you already tell that there are people that are sensitive to it. I drink a cup of caffeine and I will shake my atoms right through the walls. Like, I'll just be able to alter my perception right through a wall. And other people could drink 6 cups of coffee, and that's the only way that they can drive to work.
Right.
So there's obviously those, but it's further evidence that any sort of stimulant needs to be personalized to specific people. Any of these especially that are treating various diseases or, symptoms of the brain, then if you're trying to use a stimulant to affect the brain in a certain way, then you have to really pay attention to what's going on to a specific person, how their brain uses it, and what dosage is correct for them. It's very person-to-person specific.
There you go. That sounds like good drug-taking advice from Heather on SciByte right there.
Start off with as little caffeine as you can manage.
Yeah.
And realize that your motivation...
It's easier to add than it is to take away, because you can't take really once you've already had too much. You just kind of have to wait for it to finish. You know what I'm saying?
It may not help motivation.
I have the solution everyone needs. If you need to wake up, just turn your speakers up real loud and prepare for the next story, because it's one that I believe proves a point of Einstein's, correct?
Yes. So the complete archive of Einstein is now available through
That's what it was,
online.
Yeah. Proves he was a good student, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does actually. There are more 80,000 documents on this. Even contains some of the famous E equals MC squared equations in his own handwriting, down to postcards to his mother. It actually shows that contrary to popular belief, he was an excellent student. He left school because he couldn't handle the strict discipline and authority. Now, that doesn't mean if you can't follow the teacher's rules, you need to leave school.
Now, I'd always grown up hearing that Einstein wasn't a good student.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too.
Everything I know is wrong. Gosh dang it.
Well, it's probably a complication. It's probably that his brain was working on such a different wavelength that he probably didn't fit in the classroom very well.
Maybe I could use that excuse too.
Sure, Chris, you can use all sorts of excuses.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But according to this document, this group of documents, then they say he just didn't like the discipline, he didn't like the authority, he just didn't fit in with school. But he was obviously a very self-motivated person who did a lot of work.
Right.
So it's just interesting and really fun that all of these archives are now available. You can go online, you can look at them, they can be used for, personal information, for schools. You can go on and look at all these writings. You can actually see all the documents that made him get, E equals MC squared and all these other equations and how he went through and solved math. You're not obviously not going to see
timeline of his career here. This is really cool.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information about him and his work and his life. So it's really interesting, and it's just it's fun when these things become available online. There are so many things that are stuffed away in libraries here or there, but as the internet gets wider and more, more spread out, then you get these kind of online archives available. So now you can see many of Einstein's works and many of his papers.
That's cool, and that's great. Again, like we've mentioned before, some of these resources are also really great for students.
Yes.
So that's really cool. Very nice. Well, I just browsed a little bit of it, and it was already quite impressive. I didn't realize this, but he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1921, which was a long, long time ago. I mean, this man had been doing things many years before I was ever born.
Oh, yes.
All right, Heather. Oh, I do believe we have a spacecraft update, no?
We do. You, every single person listening to here and the person not listening in the other car or in the other house could bring about the next great Hubble picture.
Oh, really? Tell me this.
Since 1990, Hubble has made more than 1 million observations. And pretty much all of the great images you see, and that are out there, everyone goes ooh and ah over, they don't just come out of the telescope that way. There are a lot of tweaks that need to happen, a lot of data processing.
Yeah, for sure. Are they crowdsourcing this now?
Sort of, yes. So before it was, one person taking and saying, we're going to put out all the hydrogen data and make it very red. We're going to put all the oxygen data and make it really blue. And so they tweak the contrast. I've done a little bit of this where you tweak the contrast and this and that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
To get it to be
what the eye expects.
Yeah, what the eye expects, what's very visually appealing. And now they've made it available to the public. There's an archive's worth of this stuff where you can pull out any picture. They've got an online tool that you can use. You can also download it in a couple of different formats and use your own software to cut
whatever you like to use.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can download it in a FITS format. You can use. They actually talk about Adobe or GIMP or any of these type of tools.
Oh, cool! I mentioned the GIMP. That's great.
They do.
That's awesome.
I saw that. I was like, I must tell Chris about that. So you can save your works as JPEG, and there's 2 different competitions going on. They'll make a lot of these available for people to kind of scroll through and see, but the best ones that win this competition, they'll be able to put them out and have everyone see them. And there's a couple of awards, iPad, iPod, for various competitions.
Just imagine if you made one of some iconic image that showed up in textbooks and all kinds of stuff. That could be one hell of a privilege.
Yeah. So these are all results from the general purpose camera. There's some data, they give advice to search for different types of files.
Sure.
Now, they let you have all this searching abilities, very, very strict. You can search for a specific object. If you have a nebula you like, or a planet, or another galaxy that you particularly want to tweak with, then they will you can search for that. Not everything is going to be in there. I mean, they can't have looked at everything. The
Right,
sky
and they
is a
can't
really
show
big
the
place.
planets with all of the aliens.
No, of course not.
Gotta hide that.
Those are, classified. But you can go through and there's some data files that they're not really going to be of interest to anybody because they're very data specific, only going to be interesting to, me or people that are smarter than me in this field. But there are so many pictures that are visual, and anybody can go onto this archive, search it, get it, use the online or download it to mess with your own software to tweak these however you want to try to get it to look as beautiful as these, as all the pictures that you see. And then also kind of give you an idea of what's going into these photos to make them so visually appealing. The data is still there. Most of the time
great point.
It's not that they've randomly chosen colors. Most times the colors that they choose are based on what elements are there. Oxygen's in one color, hydrogen's in another color, or by thermal. So you can see the hot parts of this color and the colder parts of this color.
Right,
So
but I'm the kind of
dust.
person that I kind of would like to know what it really came in as. What did it really look like? So that's a
Yeah.
great point.
You can see the raw images. Maybe you can take, one of your favorite Hubble images that, you've seen and is gorgeous and on your wall or as your desktop. I may have both of those, but you can search for those originals and see what was it originally look like and how did they tweak it to look how it is now? And wow, what can I do? Go
Right.
for your favorite photo or a completely new one and see what you can do in post-processing to zoom, to change the contrast, the color balance, any of these things.
Huh.
To reveal the data you want or just make it as visually appealing to you as you would like.
And you don't have to send it back, I guess, if you just wanted to do it for that purpose.
No, you can just have it as a desktop for your own self, or you can.
But if you
submit
make it
to
epic,
contest.
send it to us. Seriously,
Oh,
people.
yeah.
If you make a great one, email it to SciByte at jupiterbroadcasting.com. We want to see that.
Yeah, we will totally show it on the video show.
Speaking of SciByte at jupiterbroadcasting.com, I have this red flashing light. Whoa! Look at that. According to the SciByte computer, we have some viewer feedback. Heather, what did we get this week?
Dude, Charlie Ebert sent in a Nova article and video that is extracting your own DNA.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Why would I do that?
Okay. Why?
Yeah,
Well, you
what?
can see your own DNA.
Oh.
You can just see it.
Oh, okay. That actually sounds kind of cool. That that does sound cool.
Yeah, it was. I kind of realized this, but it's very interesting to kind of realize it. There is a YouTube video that's gives you a very specific
The steps.
the steps on how to do it.
Yeah. That's from
And-
Nova. Yeah.
Yeah, DNA is supercoiled helix. We all kind of know that double helix. 2 strands wrapped together. But if you uncoil it, it's about 3 feet long. If you unwrap those 2 strands, it's 6 feet long.
That's pretty big.
Yeah,
It's pretty impressive.
I kind of knew it, but bringing it back into my brain to see that, I was like, they dive it, they pull it up, and you see all these little white strings. You're like, what's that? I was like, oh wait, that's DNA.
Wow.
Wow.
And then
I mean,
if you had a microphone or something, I guess, would you be able to look at it? I mean,
Well-
would you have to have like a crazy microphone?
Microscope?
Yeah.
No, I mean in the video. If you wait a few moments in the
It's 'cause I'm talking to
video,
one. Yeah,
it's okay.
All right,
In
I'll
the video, you can see actually, they put a stick or something down it and lift it up, and you can see these white strings, these white clumps.
That's them.
Yes. And I mean, if you unraveled all the DNA in you, that would reach from the Earth to the moon. So
That's pretty wild.
yeah, and it's kind of one of the things that, DNA isn't in every single cell of your body, but it's kind of interesting for people to kind of see that and be like, whoa, that's actually my DNA. That is much bigger than I thought. And it's basically about, getting it from the inside of your cheek.
Right. Which is a very, filled with cells.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Charlie, for sending that in. And you also have, we should be sure to mention, another video from Bill Nye the Science Guy, basically explaining DNA, right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Always gotta love Bill Nye.
I watched Bill Nye. He doesn't do that anymore, right?
No, he still does stuff, but
He's not doing
not
the show
so much
anymore.
on his show yet anymore.
Yeah. All right, Heather. Well, I think it's time for you to jump here in the old SciByte Wayback Machine, and we're going to go
I think so.
back in time. All right, here we go. Let's go.
Okay, here we go.
Ooh, this is actually a quite pleasant ride this week because we didn't seem to go that far back. Our first stop takes us to 85 years ago, April 7th, 1927. What happened?
The first television broadcast happened.
Wow.
First public display of a long-distance television transmission viewed by a group of newspaper reporters and dignitaries in the AT&T Bell Telephone Laboratories. You know, it was there where they were kind of doing some of the research and introducing the system. Then it was followed by a broadcast by the Secretary of Commerce at that time, Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover.
I like Hoover.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Live picture and voice transmitted over by a wire, over telephone lines.
Wow.
And saying, today we have, in a sense, the transmission of sight for the first time in world's history. And so his
That's really
accomplishment was heralded, greatly acclaimed by the press, and now we all watch.
Now we want it all to die because it is sucking our lives. It is ruining the world. But whatever.
It's ruining the world.
I think TV is one of the most evil things out there. It's been awful. Because see, now that I haven't had it for 3 years, I really realize how much time I spent watching TV.
Yeah.
You know, and there's other things I could be doing, like listening to awesome podcasts or making awesome podcasts. All right.
Or listening to Audible books.
That's true. Well, one of the most important things in all of our lives,
yes,
was brought to us 82 years ago, April 6th, 1930. Heather, what is this most important item?
Twinkies.
Twinkies.
That is right. Twinkies, the great and magical thing that will survive the nuclear holocaust.
Oh my goodness.
They were brought to us 82 years ago. Hostess Twiggy Snacks, invented by James Dewar, a plant manager. Was looking at an innovative product during the Great Depression. The factory was baking sponge cakes that were only really used during the summer strawberry season. They're like, hey, we could use these year round. You know, inject them with, it started off with banana cream filling. Sold 2 for a nickel. Wow. If they were 2 for a nickel, we'd all have closets full of...
Seriously, I would have way too many Twinkies.
We would all have way too many Twinkies.
Yeah.
And in World War II, there was a banana shortage, so they switched to vanilla cream. And so,
interesting. So they didn't go because of the banana shortage. Huh. Well, I got to say, I think it was a good call.
Yeah. Vanilla cream. Yum.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, he came up with the name of Twinkies when he saw a billboard for Twinkle Toe shoes. But it's just a theory. Not a rumor.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. But Twinkies, the magical sponge cake filled with num.
I don't want to like Twinkies, and I love Twinkies. I mean, I don't ever really have them.
They're such a guilty food. You're like, oh, this is so bad for me. And then you're like, where did it go? Oh, I just ate it.
And I'm not sure I buy that they survive a nuclear holocaust thing. I'm not sure. I'm just going on record. I'm saying I think they do go bad.
Yeah, they'll probably go bad.
Yeah, they probably do. All right, well, let me retune the SciByte computer so we can look up into the sky this week.
That's right. This week, the moon is nearing full, and it's going to pass by Saturn and Spica. Spica is the brightest star in the sky. It's going to be brighter than Saturn on the 6th, so Friday. So the moon is going to be just to the east of Spica, and then a little bit farther away will be Saturn.
Okay.
And on Saturday, the moon's going to rise just about twilight, along with Saturn and Spica. So this week, they're going to kind of go together. Nice little triangle.
Yeah.
With the moon, Spica will be the brightest of the star, and then Saturn, our moon, the planet, will be in there too. It's not as bright as Spica, though. So it's kind of we've had these trilogies. We had Jupiter and Venus and everything a couple weeks ago. Now we have Saturn and Spica. So all these gorgeous sort of occultations of things happening together.
Occultations?
Yeah, I think that was a mangled word, another one. for science. Science is mangling my words tonight.
Oh, it's all right.
It's okay.
It's because the audio version now, you have to have, your tongue was set up for the video version of SciByte.
Oh, okay. I haven't switched it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got to switch
That's
back over to the audio version for your tongue, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, but the soundboard is just set up right.
The soundboard of your mouth.
Yes.
Well, okay. Anything else this week?
No, I think that's just about it.
Is that the whole show right there, or what?
I think so.
Well, great show, Heather. And look at that. We got to the bottom of the whole James Cameron thing. Get to the bottom. Get it? Do you see what I did there?
I see that.
Yeah, just like we said we would last week. And, of course, we want to hear everybody's feedback. So not only can you email SciByte@JupiterBroadcasting.com, and not only can you leave a comment wherever you watch this on demand, which you can do over at JupiterBroadcasting.com and get it in just about any format you could want, but you could also tune in live over at jblive.tv on Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific and join our chat room and star in the chat room. All right, Heather, well, great show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode of SciByte, and we'll see you next week.